Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Professor Sistrunk, and I'm reaching out to my students. Okay, student, this is practice time. And you know that we got to consistently practice to keep our skills up. Now, remember, this is for those of you who are learning Cisco networking. It's on a basic level, so this lab is going to be really short. And when you hear me say lab, sometimes it's going to be labs, it's going to be packet tracer. So always remember, labs, packet tracer, that's what we're working on. This particular packet tracer lab will be navigating the iOS. And when I say navigating the iOS, in our previous lab, you saw me do some work when it was initializing a router and initializing a switch. But what you walked away with a few commands that was in there. So you learned how to do enable, you learned how to do erase startup configuration, you learned how to show flash, and you also learned what VLAN dot files and how to delete those VLAN dot files. But this one here is to show you how to navigate inside of that platform so you'll know how to use these devices. So you're going to see me establish basic connections using CLI and then use help to explore around within there. You're going to see me go from one mode to another mode. So you got a privileged exec mode and you got a global configuration mode. And you're going to get a chance to see that. Now, this is just basically teaching you how to move around in there. So it's going to be a short video, but you need to know these things or how to move aside there. So as you can see right here, I have a switch and a PC. I'm going to go over here to my network devices and grab me a switch. You know, right now I'm using the 2960 switches. Fairly simple, easy to understand. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab me a PC and throw the PC up there. Fairly simple. I'm also going to get my connector. Right now we still using console connections. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the console and then I'm going to connect to the actual switch. As you can see, we got our connection. Now, things that you should remember is that when I'm connecting from the PC to the switch, on the PC side, I have to use the connection was built in. It's called RS-232 connection. Okay. On the switch, I just connect to the console. So you will see those things built in. And if I open this switch up, you can clearly see that there's a console port on here. So let me see if I can blow this up a little for you so you can see more of it. And you can. So in here, in these switches, you have to understand all these different ports, and then you can see that we got other ports here too. Okay, so now you can see all of the different ports on the switch. So on this switch, we just want to make sure we choose the right port, which is the console port. So now we connected the switch and you see how everything is set up. Now we want to go down here and we want to establish a terminal connection. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to desktop, and from desktop we're going to click on terminal. As you can see, it's a setup up in here right now for us. Try not to change this setup, and we're going to click OK and go in here. I want you to understand it's two types of applications out there that would allow us to connect via terminal. One of them is called Telnet, and Telnet is just a remote application that allows you to remote into another device. So when I say remote into another device, even though I'm using this console cable, I'm literally going into this device from here. Okay, so we consider that remote even though it's a console cable. We physically there, but we still using a application that allow us to do that. Another one is called SSH. We're not going to talk about SSH right now because we're going to walk right into that in the next. Understand that TerraTurn is never to be used in a production environment, meaning if you go to work and you use TerraTurn to do your configurations on the routers and switch, you will cause harm to the network because it'll be easy for someone to hack into the system and see what you're doing And with that information, they can do what they want. So never use tera term, but if you're practicing at home, you can. Another thing about tera term I want you to remember is that it is always, when you remote into the server, it will be port 23. And also it's TCP. So the protocol is TCP. The port number is 23. And for those of you who don't know what TCP is just simply transmission control protocol. So the connection orientation that we're using right now is transmission control protocol. Okay, a few things I want you to remember as we move forward. We're going to continue to develop that brain and make you sharp. Now, there are a few things we want to do here. We're going to first start off by just walking around using the help command to do certain things. So as you can see right here, we're just going to type in a few things just using the help command. Okay, we're not going to make this complicated. We're going to keep it fairly simple and easy to understand. So okay, so if I needed to use the help feature, I can just type in a question mark. And if you notice, I'm at this pound symbol and I put the question mark right there. So that's the very first stage you would approach when you turn on a switch or a router. You'll be there. Okay, but we want to connect from there and go into privilege exec mode. But right now we want to mess around with this particular level right here. Okay, now we have other modes that we will go into. We got privilege exec mode, we got global configuration mode, and we will explain those in a minute. But when you first start off, just understand this is where you would be. I'm gonna bring this up a little so you can see just where you be. Now, if you notice, you got just a few commands in here, and yes, you're gonna learn all these commands, but on this particular level right here, you can only do very minimum things within the router or switch, either one. Okay, so with that being said, let's shrink that back now. Okay, now as you can see, I can type in some simple like a T and a question mark, and that will just allow me to bring up just a few commands that start with the T, and that's real cool and that's real simple. Okay, but I'm gonna get off of this mode because it's not really that fun. And I'm going to go into the next mode, which is privilege exec mode. So I want to go there. So I'm going to go enable. And like I said, people, we're going to type this out. Type them out right now until you really learn it. Now, this is a command that you had the chance, you was introduced to in the first lab packet tracer. So as you can see, once I typed that in, that took me into privilege exec mode. And in privilege exec mode, I can do quite a few things. So if I put a question mark there, you see that the commands begin to get a lot more. It's a lot more commands here. So I can just keep going and going, and you see these commands. Now these are the commands that will help you configure, troubleshoot, and make changes to the router or switches. And you're going to learn these commands here, okay? So you got quite a few commands within here that you can work with. And trust me, it's a whole lot of commands. So that's just a few, but we got a lot. Now, I could go to privilege exec mode by typing in this here. And you saw this, configuration. So if I type in the word configuration, you will all of a sudden be able to go to the configuration, or what they call global configuration mode. We're really not going to do anything. I just want you to understand that command and just make sure that you understand the different modes that you're in, because that's where you'll begin to allow to do certain things. And as you can see, if I put a question mark in there, you can see that it's a lot of more commands. So the commands continue to grow and grow and grow. So this is how we configure a router and switch. It's really simple. So if I wanted to do some changes to the clock or set the clock in here, I can go in there and make changes to the clock and set the clock in there. So let's go do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go type in and come out of there. Okay, that took me all the way back to privilege exec mode. And then I want to say show clock. Remember, we used the show command before. Now we're saying show clock. And it tells you the time that I have here. Now that's not the right time. We'll just make changes to that time and modify that time. But that gives us the opportunity to show the clock and show the appropriate time of the clock. Now you saw what I just did. I just typed in just clock, and you see that it gave me an error message. You learn from your error messages, people. So make sure you pay attention to those error messages, because they can tell you if you're doing something wrong. And as you can see, I did something wrong. I didn't put a command before it. I need a command to do it, or I need to put something after of it. So now I'm going to set the clock. I'm going to type in clock, but this time I'm going to just arrow up and I'm going to say set. And you see that gave me an error too. But if I'd have did this, put a command in front of it, watch what happens now. So now by putting that question mark, it tells me how I can set this clock. It's got the hours, the minutes, the seconds, etc., etc., etc. Now you can actually go in there and modify and make changes to the clock. So if I did like this, I type in set clock and I put in there 15 colon right there. Now I'm gonna put a question mark after that too, and it tells me what can happen here. See, I can go to day of the month, etc., etc. So by doing that, I am making changes. I am configuring this clock. So now, since I know I can put the year and all that in there, I'm going to say 31 space JAN for January. And then I'm going to put 2035. I want to know the time in the month of 2035. I don't know why. I hope I make it there. But anyway, you can see this clearly laid out here. So the command set clock, and then I put the time in there, military time, and then I put the month in there. I hit enter, and that is, the clock is now been set. So how do I know if the clock is set? Or can I go check it and see? So what was the command that we typed in first? I typed in show clock. So I'm going to say show clock now. And there it is. The change has been made. So this was a real simple lab that I wanted to do with you, because I want you to get used to being in this environment. So let's do a backup and walk through what we actually completed within here. So we made changes to the clock. Okay, really simple stuff, nothing hard, just getting you used to the environment. We learned the different modes. We learned that we got global configuration mode. We learned that we got privilege exec mode. Okay, and then we learned how to use the help command. Let me tell you something. Some of the most highly skilled IT managers, network IT managers, or engineers consistently use the help mode, because this helps us out. And we took a look over the entire system. And we have another command now. We have the clock command that we could use. We know how to set the clock. So we threw another command in there.